Good time. So are y'all ready? Are y'all
Yeah,
ready to hear about the lost Lukara's lost teachings and being a woman in the Empire?
I can't wait to
I
hear
think
it
we're gonna have
myself.
yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun. I will preface this with a few things. One, the topic of sexual dynamics will be discussed. Obviously we're I want you guys to discuss this with me, so I'll stop at certain points and go, hey, like let's discuss this. But let's remember let's have mature discussions. We can have a little fun. We can make a few jokes, but let's be, not get too much into the mechanics of things, if you know what I mean. So that will be lightly discussed here. And also, if I say any curse words, Klingon or you know, Earth Standard, please have a little help, or pardon me, a little forgiveness for me there. But yeah, so I'll just jump right into it. I have everything ready. Let me get this all set up though. Okay. And then you can, if you need to make me bigger, just click on me in Discord, and that should make me bigger for you individually if you want to see what I have up a little in more detail. Because I'm not streaming like the last one. I have everything on camera. So, first of all, I'll introduce myself. My name is Buster the Destroyer. I have been a Twitch streamer for a very long time, though, like the last few, like half a year, I've really not been doing it as much. Life's been busy. Professionally, I'm an audio engineer and a bartender at the moment. So, I come from theater and lighting and all that kind of stuff and painting, but that's where I'm from. I I'm just trying to think of what else I need to say about myself. You can find me on the social media and stuff like that. If anybody needs any of that stuff, like my Instagram, all that kind of stuff, I have a link tree if you need the link. But yeah, so all that said, uh, we are going to talk about not just Lukara, but the idea of being a woman in the Empire and what that means and how that works, and then we'll, like, we'll get to the end of it, and we'll get, like I said, we'll stop at certain points just to have some discussions, because I know there will be some topics and some things referenced here that y'all will be probably very excited to talk about because they're great episodes. And by the way, most of the episodes that I suppose that we're referencing here are actually from Deep Space Nine, which we all know is the best Star Trek for furthering sort of the Klingon lore and their story, their Klingon manity, however you say that, humanity, like being human, what's like being Klingon. We get most of that in Deep Space Nine. What else? I'm trying to think of what else I need to start with. Yeah, let's jump in because I know I'm gonna do better once I get into it. But oh, the specific episodes though, definitely looking for Parmak in all the wrong places. You're cordially invited. Heavy lore episodes for the Klingons, and House of Quark is a great one that will be talked about in and out. But we're not here to discuss just the episodes. We're here to talk about this actual subject. So let me show you guys and gals and non-binary pals. So this is kind of the outline, introduction. Part two is who is Lukara. Part three, is Klingon gender studies. Four, sexual dynamics. Five, Genesis, which is interesting. I think you'll understand why I put Genesis at the end of all this, and then conclusion. And then there's two of our favorite Klingon women who are very conniving, the Duras sisters, of course. So, all right, introduction here. The victory at Kamchi. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Don't call me out on my pronunciations. So, what is the victory at Kamchi? It is the great story of how Lukara and Kahless met. It is very much the beginning of Kahless's story, and sadly, about all we know about Lukara. Okay, so Molor attacks the city of Kamchi, right? And the most of the garrison kind of cowers and runs off, the city garrison. Everyone but Lukara and Kahless flee. And then they make this what is it? The stand. They stand their ground. They kick ass and they win, right? And a lot of the story is actually told. I'm trying to think. Oh, it's in this episode. It's in the not House of Quark, but the next one where Grilka visits again, and they're flirting, right? But like after they win, we'll just say that Lukara and Kahless have a great night. Um, the way the Klingons do. And then they kill I guess they get married fairly quickly, I assume, or maybe the marriage is I don't really understand where the marriage is in the timeline of that whole thing. I can't tell if it's like they got married very quickly like because they were like, "Hey, you're the best," or what, but they at their wedding, whenever that is, probably shortly after, um they kill most of what's left of Molor's troops at their wedding. Like they are attacked at their wedding. This is and I should have put this one next, but the wedding custom of using, I hope I'm saying this correctly, the mastakas at the end of the wedding where they beat them up, remember? At their wedding, and you're cordially invited for Worf and Jadzia. Like they show this, everybody kind of attacks them, especially the the party of the groom or the bachelor party and all that. They attack them at the end, and this is what reflects that. So like that whole battle or that their wedding battle essentially is what's being represented in that ritual. And of course, this is the greatest romance in all of Klingon history, right? Like this is, and roughly, we know that the existence of Lukara and Kahless occurred between like 1,000 to 1,500 years previous to essentially the TNG era of Star Trek, right? I think that's the 24th century. So, everybody moves on, like, and also there's something interesting about all this off to the side. We really don't know how old Klingons are, or how old they have the capability of being, because like I guess there's some accounts of them like having been like him having already been very old when all this occurred. So Klingons may live for a very long time. It's just that they die so much that they don't really know. Or at least it's not clearly defined in canon. Oh, who would have known that happens in Star Trek, right? All right, so this is our second part. Who is Lukara? So, here I have it. Origin, question mark. Cased, likely warrior, but I'm not really clear on if the case system existed before or after Kahless came through. And then, of course, spouse Kahless. So, where did she come from? What was her upbringing? What glory did she have before Kahless? What was her influence on Klingon culture? And why the hell hasn't she been explored beyond being Kahless's wife, right? This is what I was saying a second ago. This is the only context in which she has truly ever mentioned is the fact that she was Ales's wife. And of course, the victory at Comchi that I just told you guys about, you guys, gals, non-binary pals about. So that's the thing is, like, unfortunately, if you've ever heard of the Bechdel test, this does not pass the Bechdel test. The Bechdel test is a thing in film where it tests whether the the female characters or whoever, feminine presenting people in film and even TV shows, it exist beyond the context of men, as in like, do they even have discussions in the content in which they are actually not talking about a man? And there's another, and I think the first question is there a woman present? I can't remember what the Bechdel test is off the top, but I think it's like those two questions or something very similar to them. So Lukara unfortunately does not pass the Bechdel test because she is only she is only brought up in context of a man. And of course, these Klingons, what was it? Oh, Boreth, they bring back Kahless, quote unquote, but they don't bother to bring Lukara. They don't have a way to bring her back because what have we lost from her? You know, uh I think it's really important to talk about how, any like really influential person in politics, or like just history, at least here on Earth, especially if they are in some sort of relationship with somebody else. There's probably a lot of times where like really important men are mentioned in our history, and they had wives, they had, concubines, consorts, whoever, that probably weren't credited for as much of their strategy and their planning or whatever was important to them to do to make their mark on history. We don't probably mention enough that these women often probably influenced how these men thought, because who was having discussions with them behind a closed door, right? I think we can kind of apply the same thing to Lukara and Kales here. Like, she probably isn't credited for enough of her influence on how Klingon culture has been structured from what Kales has, like, had previously proselytized to his brothers and sisters, right? So I want to stop right here real quick and kind of ask you guys, like, what do you think about this? What observations would you make here, or if you have anything to share on this thought? Don't all go at once. It's fine.
Well, I think it's incredibly poignant, and I had never thought of this. That you brought up that the clerics of Boreth brought back Kalis, but not Lukara, and
Yeah.
how that really, really just shows that she just didn't occupy that place of importance in their minds when she should have. That's really cool.
Yeah, and maybe the cult one second. One maybe the culture like at the time didn't credit her enough too, because she was the kind of person that stood back and was totally fine with that. But please go ahead. Whoever was about to say
no,
something.
it was me. I was going to say that maybe at that time when they brought forth more of what Kalis did, it was just a few people that only focused on that. And when that was repeated over and over again, they didn't have anything more on Lukara because nobody bothered at that particular moment to say anything. So it could have been on those few people than anybody else in the culture, and it just spread from that moment.
I mean, just kind of like here on Earth, how, like, I mean, I know Kahless isn't a religion per se, but he kind of is spiritual to the Klingons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you could even look at Jesus of Nazareth in the Christian Bible, right? Like, there's probably a lot we don't know about, like, his life,
Yeah.
because there were probably a lot of women in his life not credited with any kind of influence on him, right? Mary Magdalene often comes up in that discussion. I won't get too much in human theologies, I think a lot of you understand what I mean by using that example. So,
Yeah.
Hi.
hi.
If you've read the Pak Batleth, it talks a lot about Lukara in there.
Oh, really?
Yes, her father invited Kalis to a banquet there. He met Lukara there, and it tells about that. It tells about how they killed the 500 troops, and then it goes on to um, her creating the death howl because while she was pregnant,
Oh,
to help Kalis take the knife and plunge it into both of his hearts. And she cried out to Stovacor, saying that a great warrior is coming.
oh
You know,
my goodness.
and she
See,
also
you gotta send me whatever that you're talking about is, because I gotta read this.
created the Order of the Batleth.
See, look at that. See, we had somebody actually answer these questions. That's beautiful. Thank
She
you. Thank you very much. That's great. Please, I need to find this. I have to find this very quickly.
well, send me
I
your
have the
info on how I can
PDF
get a
on
hold
that.
of you, and I can
I'll
send
message
you
you real
an
quick
episode
on
book.
here.
Okay.
I'll just say, it's me. There you go. Thank you. Your name's Katala on here. Is that how you
Yes,
say that? Okay.
Katala,
Thank
yes.
you. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. I had no idea. And that's obviously the beauty of books. And I'm kind of going more off of like what's been said on the show and what we know from the TV show, because that's what most people get exposed to. I have like 3 Star Trek books in my
Wow.
on my docket right now, so now I'm gonna add a 4th.
I have a whole bookshelf of nothing but Klingon stuff. My default dealing with the after effects of being in the military, as I deep dive, I research a heck of a lot.
Well, that's
So,
awesome. One
but
second, let me get.
it says, was it in the Pabaklath, it says, Lukara, pregnant of their firstborn son, understood what had to be done and gave him the Mavak. Lady Lukara and Kayla said their goodbyes, and Lukara knew that they would meet again, fighting side by side in an underworld more glorious than Grether ever was.
Oh my gosh.
So,
That's beautiful.
yeah.
I love
And
that.
the Pabaklath is a Klingon epic. It talks about Kalis and Lukara and how Kalis created the Mokbara, the Klingon, for the lack of a better word, using human terminology, Tai Chi. It's a way to
Right.
gather the mind and the body and the spirit.
Yeah, we see Worf do that in one episode of TNG with the girls,
So yeah,
if I'm
sorry
not
for
mistaken.
jumping in, but
No, that's what this is about. That's why I stopped so we could all discuss Lucara but at greater length, because you just gave us all wonderful information. So, with everything you just said, again, you literally just told us where she came from, uh, kind of gave us some implications of what her upbringing was, some glories before Kales, and what, most importantly, what was her influence on Klingon culture. It sounds like she was a lot more important to that than she is given credit for,
well, to me,
at a greater scale.
yeah, to me, she didn't stand beneath him or above him. She stood with him.
Yeah, she
She
stood side by
protected his
side.
neck. If somebody
Exactly.
attacked him, she defended his vulnerable spots.
Exactly. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Katala. I appreciate that. All
You're
right.
welcome.
So I'm going to take this opportunity. I think this is a good launching point to get into the next parts of this, right? All right. So this is where we're going to start some Klingon gender studies. And again, there may be things that y'all know that I don't. But this is generally what I have for the moment. This is actually 2 slides. This is so much. So what we know. And I the preface too is Klingons have mostly been presented as a binary and heteronormative people. For people who don't understand what binary and heteronormative means, binary is the basically saying like there's only like man and woman, or there's 2 genders. But shout out to Core, because he didn't care what was going on with Dax. He was just happy to see them again, right? And then heteronormative means like where you sort of like think in the world as default of like the traditional gender roles of man, woman, whatever. But personally, be whatever you want to be, non-binary, binary, up and down, left and right, do your thing. Do your thing. Let's all just defend each other being happy and good. So, yeah, so they're mostly so far presented as binary and heteronormative. K-System seems to disregard gender, because we often see women like on Klingon ships, running them, fixing them, shooting the weapons on those things, hitting on Riker when he's aboard, that kind of thing. And then, but we can also kind of see that women are generally accepted as the primary child care providers. Sorella, a good example. She's actually a good example of a lot of this slide. That's why she was chosen for this image. Lady Sorella, pardon me, of House Smart Talk. Klingon high society tends to have women serving as the keepers of houses, finances, investments, lands, holdings, and like the tending house, and not just in the sense of like the physical house, right? The house overall, as we tend to mean with Klingons. And this is likely true in lesser houses and families, and it probably also that probably stems from women being the primary care providers for children, right? That's I think we can kind of extrapolate even in human culture, like that's probably why women tend to be like the heads of household matters, or have been in many cases in the past and even today, because, you know, we're just starting to figure out that everybody can work, everybody can do what they want, you know, and all that here on Earth. But women have held those places because men would, you know, go to, you know, they would be the providers, or they would go to, you know, like off and away for war and all those kinds of things. So, and then gender essentialism does rear its head in Klingon society. Sorella is once again an excellent example of this. The high standards she put on Jadzia to join House Martok, you know, she even slut shamed her a little bit in the quite a bit actually in the episode. Like she was sort of enforcing what she felt like were the essential gendered standards of uh Klingon women, which if you like stopping here real quick, if you don't know what gender essentialism means, it's like saying like, you know, uh, you know, men should be the ones to mow the lawn and take out the trash, you know, that kind of thing, like where you just, you live in that place where you just assign like specific things, and that people can only live in these certain roles and these certain, kind of similar to heteronormativism, but gender essentialism is a little bit more like heteronormativism is more about like straight relationships, right? Whereas gender essentialism is about just like gender roles themselves, and again being essentialist about them, if that makes sense. And then what we can extrapolate. Sexism in the Empire. Okay, this is where I get a little salty. Sexism in the Empire is generally displayed by weak men who need to lean on their gender presentation in order to gain advantage dishonorably. Women may not serve on the council. Gowron, right? That's a quote by Gowron. Because what was he trying to do? He was trying to like keep the Duras sisters out, right? Um, there were women on Kimpek's council. Gowron previously offered a seat to Kalir, and he made this rule to keep the Duras sisters out. So it's only like sexism. Anytime we've seen, for the most part, that we've seen it displayed in the show that I can even think of, I can remember, it's for a man to put like to gain some advantage over a woman. Like, and kind of skip down to the bottom there. Houses are unsuccessful when they try to force gender essentialism. De Gore, right? He was taking advantage of, I don't even remember what the Grilka's house was called, but it's Grilka's house as far as I'm concerned. House of Quark for a while there, but right, like he was challenging Quark, and he was trying to hold Quark to his Klingon, like to De Gore, you know, De Gore's Klingon gender essentialism. And, you know, in the end, like, in fact, it was Gowron who was like, this sucks. You know, this is not honorable. Like, you're just gonna like basically, you know, it's like a bear picking on a raccoon, right? It's just like not a fair fight at all. And so yeah, like this seems to be the theme, and you know, it is Star Trek, so there's as Star Trek should be progressive, and it is, and it always has been. It's always, it tends to use those kinds of things to hopefully like obviously like make people think about it here on Earth, but also to show that like it doesn't do anybody any good, right? Um, yeah, many successful Klingon houses value their members beyond gender or roles. You know, everybody has their value, everybody has their skill, everybody has their merits. And it seems like, you know, a good house, like a successful Klingon house is more a meritocracy. I mean, I know generally whoever, you know, is kind of in line, like they do the whole who's born first thing and who's in charge of the house thing. But again, successful houses value the members of that house for their like merits, for their valor, for their honor, for their glory, for the things they've done in the name of not only the Empire but also their own. So and I think we can kind of, yeah, we could take a break here real quick if y'all want to talk about some of this, you know, these two slides and just these two, like just all these ideas. But like what do you think have been some like interesting like gender dynamics you've noticed between Klingons? Now, again, we have the sexual dynamics, so that's a little different, but I'm just talking about anything beyond that. Please, if you have anything to add.
I'm trying to focus how I want to say this. I feel like with the way that we've kind of seen how women were in charge of like the household, that in those roles a lot of people maybe don't think about all of the planning, the ops, the logistics, the everything that would go into that and keeping all of that running, which would then apply in a battle scenario in, you know, supply chains, getting things from place to place, keeping up with supplies, on top of fighting, right? So these women are not only trained warriors, but they're also better potentially at all of these other fighting, non-fighting roles that would be important still in on a battlefield or with an army organization and keeping things together. And so fighting is very important, obviously, when you're in a battle, but having that strategy, having those things, you know, around making sure everything is working as needed. Those are kind of the unsung labor, right? The forgotten labor on a lot of those things. And I think that's true for humans as well. A lot of that planning and organization and logistics and accounting and a lot of those other things falls on women, and it is absolutely labor, and it keeps all of those other things running smoothly, right?
Yeah, they stand at like the board and move the pieces while the pieces are their husbands.
Right.
You know, I think you're no, I think that's such a good point. Like logistic, you know, to expand on with obviously the point about the women being heads of household. Like you're thinking of it from a military perspective because each Klingon, like especially the great houses, have essentially their own loyal. It's like a bit feudal, right? Like they're almost like lords. Like if you're watching something like Game of Thrones, right? Like it's like they have their own area, their region, or their holdings, or wherever they rule, right? On or off world, and they have to manage that. And who probably is the master manager of a house? You know, who's the one who probably is the military logistics and operations and even like inventory person? You know, it's probably especially the women. That's such a great point. That is excellent. You're absolutely 100% correct. Like I didn't
And
even think
by
about it
that,
when I made the slide, and
right.
I'm so glad you said that. You
Yeah.
know,
I think a lot of times too, when we think of non-war situations, you think about like the celebrations, the feasts, the all these other things too. How does
keeping
the
people out of trouble when there isn't war or feasts
right,
happening, you
right?
know, like the
How
management of your areas. Yeah.
all of that, and it's a lot of work to keep up with, you know, all of those things and keep everything running smoothly. And it's the unseen work, it's the unappreciated work, it's the behind the scenes things that make sure everything else runs well. So
That's why somebody like Sorella isn't just Sorella. She's Lady Sorella.
yeah, exactly, yeah, and it's extremely important.
But a little bit of topic. This actually is derived from the Viking Age, where the women actually were took care of the house. They were very important. So we also know the Klingons are derived from the Vikings and the other ones from
I
Asia.
would say
So
somewhat, yeah, like the Mongols and stuff. Yeah, for
yeah, the
sure.
Mongol. Yeah, it's the look.
Yeah,
But
that's not off topic at all. That's a great observation. Like somebody had to manage the log house, you know what I mean? And the people who
yeah,
came in and out of it.
all the women in Viking Age had the keys to the house. They took care of the defense of the house when the husband was not there. So it was logic. She took care of the soldiers that were left behind to take care if somebody attacked the house. So women, both in Klingon and Viking, are very similar.
Well, there you
That's
go.
just about it. What I wanted to say.
No, thank you for adding that. I appreciate that. That's great. And like again, like well, I say again, I haven't said this yet, but you know, to kind of add to that point too. I mean, what do we truly have to compare Klingons to? Because what is every alien race in Star Trek? There you go. What is you know, what do we ever have to compare any of these alien races to? It's humanity. And what do these alien races come from in reality? Humanity. They are different shades of humanity, right? Like, you know, I would say, you know, maybe the Vulcans are kind of like our more obviously logical, thoughtful side with less emotional influence. Klingons, I think they're pretty emotional. Uh, you know, they're pretty emotional. They're violence. Ferengi is our greed. You know, or the Ferengi are our greed. You know, who else? You got the Andorians. They're definitely like, you know, between them and Klingons, they both got between them passion. You know, Andorians are much more, you know, cold, literally and figuratively. Uh, Romulans, deceit, lying, you know, manipulation. Like every one of those, every Star Trek race is a shade of humanity. And Klingons represent, you know, kind of, I don't know, something between like, boisterousness, belligerence. I think you could use those two words: boisterousness, belligerence, and brutality, the three B's of Klingons. So yeah, that's a great, you know, you guys, thank y'all so much for bringing these observations with me here. I'm really having a fun time. Did anybody have anything else before I move on to the next part of this?
Klingons do live with passion because they have such short lives when they're in battle. So they have passion for everything.
Yeah, I mean, today is a good day to die, right? Why not
Yes.
live like you're gonna die? Just like everybody says, live like you're gonna die tomorrow. No, live like you're gonna die today.
There's a ritual
Klingons are a bit more urgent.
there's a ritual that
Yeah.
a couple can do to kind of be known that they are mated. There's a tea ritual. The tea is toxic to Klingons. So when they
Right.
share it together, they both stand a chance to die. So
It's
what
Klingon
better way
roulette.
to, yes.
Yeah, tea roulette sounds like a great time. Not.
And I'm sure that the the older Viking like me, the older Bartok, I think, is he agrees with me. We are supposed to be dead. We
It's
we don't
time to
get any
go.
young one.
Yeah, nobody's getting any younger. Live your life. And you know, the oldest Klingons are either they're probably either very, very craven, or they are very, very bold, and they have not stopped being bold, right? Like, or they're just, you know, they just make blood wine and they're just chilling. Like, there's nothing wrong with that too. But all right, I'm gonna get on to the next subject, which again, this is there's a little we're getting into sexual dynamics, so let's all save our giggles for the end. Okay. I'll giggle, so that's fine. I'll do all the giggling for everybody. But all right, here we go. I hope you enjoy the pictures I have picked for this slide. Uh, so we've got Quark and Grilka. I think that's actually while they were living out the Com Chi thing in Parmok and All the Wrong Places and from Deep Space Nine. And I can't remember the name of the Neelix episode, but that's the one where they, you know, the Klingon, he saves Harry Kim from the Klingon lady by sleeping with her. So, so why are sexual dynamics important, right? Because it influences, like, on a more maybe subtle level that we don't recognize how we operate in life. You know, what we like is what we like, and it makes us, you know, sometimes our brains get kind of horny and dumb, and or horny and smart, and you know, it subtly or not so subtly, it does influence the way we think, at least as humans. So I assume it can apply to Klingons. But why are they important? Klingon women are often portrayed as the sexual aggressors, which is very interesting, right? Because, you know, I mean, nobody should aggress anybody, but you know, it's just the way they operate. It's very consensual with them. It's the way it's the standard of their culture. So, what does that imply about Klingon relationship dynamics? So, I want you all to think about that. Is Gowron just salty because no one is drawing his blood first? Is this really why he didn't want women sitting on the council? Because he's just salty that nobody was drawing his blood? Because we never saw, you know, Gowron in any kind of relationship. Maybe he did in some books or something, but yeah, I think he's just a salty boy. And that's me. I'm sitting here wagging my finger at the camera like y'all can see me doing it. Love poems and throwing heavy objects. Again, another like very important part of the sexual dynamic. You know, Worf describes that to I was about to say Will Wheaton. He describes that to Wesley, of course, or tells him about this in that, I can't again, I don't know what that specific episode was, but we all know the episode. Face biting. Is it for everyone or is it just for the girls? You know? It seems to just be for the girls, from what I understand, but who knows? What do relationships with other species look like? B'Elanna Torres' parents, right? There's like a lot of implied, like the dad, like her father, whose name I forget, and I also don't remember the name of her mother, but they had a really like hard dynamic for him. Like it wasn't working for him. And she would, you know, I don't think she understood how to make it work with him. I don't know. Like I wasn't there. I wasn't part of that relationship. I don't want to be. But it seems that when especially with B'Elanna, I think that's a really good example of how badly it can go. But then Grilka and the Grilka and Quark situationship. I call it a situationship because they're never really truly committed to a relationship. They seem to be friends with benefits of some sort, right? Situationship's a little bit of a more polite way to put it, I suppose, but also just the like the yo-yo of it, I think gives it the situationship demeanor. But yeah, I just think that personally that it clearly from the examples we've mostly seen, it's clearly like when it's a Klingon woman with, you know, a male person from another species, it tends to be very much, I guess, what falls, you know, at least she expects the dynamics to fall within what what she seems to be normalized to, which is like almost like a female-led relationship with Klingons. At least, you know, again, sexually especially. But I think that again with B'Elanna Torres' parents, you know, it can either go south, it can go good like it does with Broken Cork, or it can go pretty south. You know, and I didn't put B'Elanna and Tom there. I didn't have enough space without it like making the slide look off. But I think that B'Elanna and Tom, you know, even though she's half Klingon, there are some things there because she struggles a lot with her Klingon, like her Klingon self, right? And she struggles with how she handles with him. She does tend to, you know, one of the things is they give her kind of a spicy temper. So she seems to be, you know, she has that hard edge, but it does come to play. It does definitely like her Klingon self, like her Klingon half does come to play in their relationship often. I can't really, and then another, I forget, what's her face from Discovery, L'Rell and dude guy, but he actually starts off. He's a Klingon, right? He starts off. Sorry for spoilers on Discovery, but you know he starts off. He's actually a Klingon, and he's like turned into a human-looking person, and all that. But like I can't remember. There's like this weird, like he's kind of human, but he's not because he's sort of. It's that guy's body. Yeah, it's really complicated, but that's a weird one. Um, And then lastly, redundant organs must be very helpful for people that are very, very prone to injury. That's all I'll say. That must help a lot, especially for the dudes, you know. So, because I'm sure it's not always just battle that's breaking something off. You know what I mean? So maybe that was an uncouth joke, but but you know what I mean, guys. Like, come on. So, and it must impress other species as well. I'm sure it does in some contexts. So, but yeah, like, I think we can stop again here and have a discussion, But yeah, like I think overall Klingon sexual dynamics are very much that. I guess it's more of a female-led situation, sexually, and maybe even outside of that too in a lot of cases. But I do think that their sexual dynamics very much influence the way they think and feel. And I do think, I mean, think about every Klingon man that's even responded in some way to women in the show. They tend to respond to feistiness, even in other races and things like that. So I think Klingon men tend to enjoy kind of just being along for the ride once in a while, if not often, if not most of the time, and the women seem to enjoy being in charge. So, does anybody have any observations to make?
Well, if I can jump in,
Please and
as
thank
far as
you.
courtship, Klingon males do not pursue the female. They conquer that which they desire. On becoming attracted to a female, the male will make his interest known by allowing her to see the fire in his eyes. Once she has noticed this, he will begin to ignore her. The pursuit is then up to the female. If
Yeah.
she is interested, she will start a very calculated plan to catch and pique his interest. So
See.
she watches him until he can no longer ignore her, and when he looks to meet her eyes, she looks away. She places herself close to him so that he cannot help but take in her scent. So,
Yeah, again, they're the aggressors.
well, the male
They.
the male kind of starts it, but the female
Yeah, but
wraps
but
it.
uh, but we also just see plenty of examples, too. Like I think like 100%. That's their sort of like mating dance, so to speak, right? Between themselves, especially. But we've seen them just straight up hit on dudes. Like my favorite is Riker on that when he's on that officer exchange thing,
Yeah.
and that one lady's like, I will have him. Just like, yeah, he's cool. I got it. Like they're very like very, very they very much vocalize what they would like. Or yes.
I
And
think on that dining scene, one of the Klingons said, if the food is not to your liking, then perhaps one of our women can breastfeed you. And then he said, well, then
yes.
which one would you like? He goes, one, why not both?
Yeah, and he knew how to like have some bravado with them because they respect that. They respect somebody who can sit there and kind of talk game in a fun way. I think Klingon women especially really like that. I mean, and all of them that we've seen, like they've really been interested in men that have a bit of that definitely have confidence and definitely have uh like gusto, so to speak, little bravery, because you have to be brave. You have to be brave to tempt a Klingon woman. I think you have to be a very brave person. So anybody else? What else y'all got?
You just
Trying to make
have
sure.
a captive audience.
Yeah, it's fine. That's fine. Well, we'll move on. Uh, all right. Let me set up the next slide. So I'm gonna we're getting toward the end here. I have some conclusion stuff after this, but I think this is kind of like my big tie it all together, right? And this is Genesis, and not like from that movie, not from the third movie or second movie or whatever the hell it was. Genesis, the death of gods. So most of us probably know this story. It's told during Worf and Jedzia's wedding, right? Um, the gods whose names at least I don't know of, created the first Klingon, Kortar, from Fire and Steel. His heart thundered, but it weakened. Kortar was lonely. They forged a second, stronger heart. That's actually a really important quote here. Stronger heart. The first, and she's not named as far as I know, woman. Kortar became jealous. He and in the wedding ceremony, it's implied that they fought because they take Batless and they sort of do a pretend fight, Jadzia and Worf. And so it's implied that they fought. She won, like she got to the point where she had the advantage. But instead of killing him, she went, like, she thought about it and she proposed that they join together and that nothing could stop them. And she was absolutely correct because their hearts in unison destroyed the heavens. Now, why is this an important story outside of being part of a wedding, like a Klingon wedding? It's important because it shapes not only like sort of the male presenting side of Klingon society, but also the female presenting side. And it tells us that women, it literally says that woman is stronger. And because they came together, they were both strong, right? So it's like their version of like Genesis from, the Bible. So it's their version of their own creation myth. The gods, they turned the heavens to ashes. They destroyed, and and then I guess they went on to sort of be the Adam and Eve of Klingons. But it's really important here because when we look at the Kamchi story, what happens in that story? Now, they don't fight each other necessarily, but they fight together and they overcome huge odds. Like they overcome extremely, like, I would suppose, what's the word? Not so great odds. I'm just trying to say, you know what I'm trying to say. But like they overcome a lot to win that battle together. And because they were together, they won. That's what, that's what the importance of the story of the victory at Kamchi is it shows, because, Molor's killed later on after he forges the first Batleth. Like that, the ending of, like, Kahless versus Molor, like, is later. And sure, that's an important story, but Kamchi is literally like the birth of an important relationship in Klingon history, which is, of course, Kahless and Lukara. But it, in some ways, mirrors this story, whereas we ignore all the first part of it, of the jealousy and all that, and we just go, like, with they joined together and nothing could stop them. And that was a correct assumption, right? Because Kahless and Lukara were obviously super legendary. They achieved so much in their time, and they are the greatest influencers of Klingon culture. But I think the point of their story, it's like a retelling of the Klingon Genesis. It's a more, instead of like the male character, which in this case is obviously Kahless, like, becoming jealous of the strength of the woman, that has been made, right? This woman who's been forged. He's like this, the Kahless and Lukara story. It just starts with complete, like, it's a result of them both being brave. They are both courageous in the face of pretty steep odds, and they don't have any moment of disagreement. They just fight together, and that's what forges their love, is like the fire of battle, right? The fires and the steels of battle. So I think that the Genesis story of the Klingons overall is a very good, along with the Kamchi story. Like, the Genesis is like sort of obviously the original Klingon creation theory. Kahless and Lukara is kind of the secondary. It's not the creation story, or myth of obviously Klingon kind. It's the creation myth of Klingon culture. Right? So, both of these stories are important, but most importantly, one is the creation of an entire race. The next one is the creation of a code, of a moral system, of how to operate, how to be Klingon, what it is to be Klingon. So, And now we'll just get to the last part here. Women are the most magnificent strength of the Empire. That's what we get from the Genesis story. That is what we get from the Kamchi story. Because they make, they not only are strong, like just as strong, if not stronger, and tempered with the wisdom, like in the Genesis story, but they are exactly what keeps this place running. They who was it? Katala was saying earlier about like how they take care of everything, and they fight. They do it all. I'm sure the men can do it all as well, and I'm not denoting them in any way, but clearly the theme of Klingon women is that they are behind, like, we may not know it from the content of Star Trek and all this, but really they are what is the spine of the Empire. Without them, there would be no Empire, right? Just like humanity wouldn't have humanity without, not just on a biological level of like the obvious, like making babies and stuff like that, but I mean in like the more like the kind of strength that the kind of strength that men display in the Empire is, the strength of courage, force, all that. Whereas women's strength is something like not only all that, but also again tempered with wisdom. There's a cool head. There's somebody who doesn't let the blood get too hot, and when it needs to be hot, it's boiling. So there you go.
If I
And
may,
load, listen here and now, back us or find a good day to die. All right? All right. There you go. Because y'all do. But yeah, that's it. That's all I had. I hope y'all enjoyed this. If y'all want to continue to like talk about any of this or make any more points or add to some stuff that maybe you've been holding on to for a few minutes, that would be cool. But I thank you for allowing me to present this, and I hope you enjoyed it.
if I may, to add to your point, is a very old saying: behind every great warrior or a man is a greater woman. That is a very old saying.
I would say that the better saying for Klingons was next to any great warrior is an even greater warrior.
Yeah, sure. Even through history of like I said, I'm more into Viking things. So through the history
Oh
of the
yeah,
Vikings,
no, you're fine.
there's always been the calm head, the one who actually, the men used to be idiots, fighting everyone, getting insulted. There was always a woman behind it going, "No, don't do that."
No. like chill out.
But still, and that's actually very funny because that actually says everything about Klingon warriors. If they have a woman, she's in the back going, "No, don't. Just be
No.
careful before you do something."
Yeah. But yeah, thanks again, y'all. I really appreciate that. That was a lot of fun.
That was, thank you.